Welcome back to Fox 5's On the Hill live this Sunday morning. You know, in this election year, the presidential candidates are being examined from many different angles. The Washington Monthly magazine did an interesting study on both of the major party candidates, President Biden and former President Donald Trump. They looked at 21 policy areas and looked at who got more done during their time in the White House. Magazine says Biden accomplished 14 of his most key issues. Trump accomplished 3 of his big issues, and they tied on 5 issues. To dive into this a little bit more, Wolfe joins us this morning. He's an editor at Washington Monthly and is here to talk about the accomplishment records of these 2 presidents. What I found interesting about this piece was not that it was looking at, you know, whether one was better than the other. It was simply kind of a clinical look at who got what done. So let's talk about your methodology first before we start looking at what they did. How did you determine what accomplishments were?
Yeah, and thank you for having me. Our methodology, we just set out to look at what they set out to do and how far they got towards getting that done. So it's not about how you or I feel about, you know, the substance of one of their accomplishments, whether we think it was a good idea to try to, say, build a border wall or to pass the Inflation Reduction Act, but what did they set out to do? How effective were they in getting it done?
All right, so let's pull up some of this. We'll start with Joe Biden here, because you were saying Joe Biden, in your estimation, and let's also point out Joe Biden still has a few more months left on his first term. You say Biden has had more accomplishments. So this is what you've listed for Biden: the Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure bill, national security, antitrust legislation. Candidates often promise things, but sometimes their promises get away from what they are able to deliver. How do you determine whether or not he accomplished these things? Certainly he promised them.
You go by issue. You look at the candidates, the president's lists of what they say their greatest accomplishments were, and you see if they actually got them done. And so you just make that comparison. You know, former President Trump, for instance, said that he was going to eliminate 2 regulations that were on the books for every one that was added. And at the end of his term, he claimed to have eliminated 8 for every one. If you actually look at the Federal Code of Regulations, he kept them roughly even. So that's how you evaluate those kinds of claims. All
right, let's pull up the Donald Trump list here, because you looked at the former president as well. Now, again, Trump had a full 4 years in office. You say amongst his accomplishments were taxes, courts, Supreme Court in particularly, those 3 Supreme Court appointments that he was able to make, in social issues. And I think, you know, when you look at the social issues with Trump, obviously Roe v. Wade has to get to the top of a lot of conservatives of what they would look at as his accomplishments. For a lot of conservatives, they might say that that one accomplishment maybe was able to tip the scales for them, and it continues to feed some of his support even now into 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of this list, which you can see on WashingtonMonthly.com, is that you can look at it for yourself and you can see how significant you feel each of these accomplishments was, and whether or not it tips the scale for you in terms of seeing who was the more effective president. Certainly, Trump accomplished goals that have been conservative social goals, like ending Roe v. Wade, ending affirmative action, things that they've sought for decades. So to his base, that's huge.
Are there things that they both promised that neither one of them was able to deliver? And I'm thinking right now on, you know, the issues over immigration.
That's definitely a big example.
And by the way, they wouldn't be the first 2 presidents to have promised that and not been able to deliver it either.
That's right. That's right. Comprehensive immigration reform has been, you know, in the works, or desired but not achieved, for as long as I can remember. Yeah, I mean, each of them had opposing goals. They wanted to do different things. Biden wanted to bring more different kinds of people into the country, give them opportunity, give America new blood, and to some extent he did that. He upped the numbers of refugees who could be brought into the country, and so on. But he is still dealing with a crisis at the border and has not been able to pass immigration reform.
Rob Wolfe is the editor at the Washington Monthly magazine. It's a fascinating piece. If you get a chance, check it out, because I think actually some eye-opening things about what you thought you saw, maybe what actually did occur. So Rob, we thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we want to continue this conversation and get the Democratic perspective on the presidential race and the protests on campus. Obviously, anti-Semitism has been widely reported to be on the rise across this country. And House leaders this past week said that universities are not doing enough to protect Jewish students. Now, the House passed a measure broadening the definition of anti-Semitism, and Congress is looking into federal funding for university. Rich Nichols is a Democratic strategist joining us live this morning. And, you know, one of the questions that has been floating around about this has been whether or not this is going to be effective. Can Congress legislate people into fighting anti-Semitism, which clearly and disturbingly has been on the rise across this country?
Well, you know, I don't necessarily agree that redefining anti-Semitism is the answer. I think, I think back when I was in law school, and there was always a debate about what is and what is not obscenity, and the answer was, well, you'll know it when you see it. It's the same thing with the isms: racism, sexism, anti-Semitism. You know it when you see it. You know it when you hear it. And I think if we redefine it at this stage of the game, you know, laws are created to give the population, to put the population on notice with regard to what is acceptable and what's legal and what's not. To redefine it at this stage of the game just might make it more complicated to determine whether or not the protesters are participating in free speech or hate speech. So I think we should just leave it alone and let the and let things progress as they are. You know, we have some pretty strong laws on the books with regard to prohibiting discrimination of any kind. I think we should just keep the status quo.
Yeah, but Rob, at this stage right now, we have got young people out there on campus saying things that are calling for the end of the state of calling for the state of Israel. Doesn't there have to be at some point a recalibration of this conversation to say, look, you can support the Palestinians and the humanitarian crisis they are in right now, but at the same time, if you're going out there and you're calling for the end of the state of Israel and espousing anti-Semitic sayings like this, that there's got to be a line somewhere between supporting the Palestinians and not being anti-Semitic.
You know, it takes me back to this whole student protest thing. Takes me back to the 60s when I was a very young teenager when the campuses erupted in 1966 and 67 over the Vietnam War. And I distinctly remember wondering, when is the government going to explain to us, educate us with regard to what the issues are and tell us why we're in Vietnam? And I think the same situation is hurting us now. The government is not explaining to the American public the reasons why we have steadfast support of Israel. They're not explaining the very, very complicated 60 to 70 year history with regard to the Palestinians and the Israelis and the fight over the homeland. And I think we just all need to be educated. And I think once, especially the young folks who weren't even thought of when this whole conflict began, I think they just need to be educated with regard to how difficult this situation is from a political and a humanitarian point of view. And when things are this difficult, I think we all need to default and fall back on the issue of humanitarianism. Everyone deserves to have a land to live in, to call their own.
The reality is we're in a presidential election year right now, 2024. There are all manner of things that come up in a campaign and a presidency that were unexpected. The fact that right now Joe Biden has an entire left wing of his party right now, you know, calling out the plight of the Palestinians, how big of a danger is that at an election that might come down to inches if you've got the left wing of the Democratic Party severely criticizing this president and his policy towards Israel right now?
Well, I think what any president has to do, and President Biden has to do at this point in time, is to make a decision. Be decisive, make a decision, whether it's right or wrong. At the end of the day, when the American people go into the voting booth in November, they're going to try to make a decision about who can lead this country forward.
One of the decisions he might be making, one of the decisions he might be making, though, is to bring Palestinian refugees here. Will that help?
I think, again, we fall back on humanitarianism and history. The United States of America has always been the place where refugees, people who are being persecuted in their homeland, can come and get some respite. I don't think anything has changed. I don't have a problem with that, and I don't think the American people will have a problem with bringing Palestinians here for under refugee status. But at the end of the day, like I was saying earlier, the president has to make some decisions, be decisive to demonstrate his ability to lead in this very, very difficult situation.
Rich Nichols, we thank you so much for joining us live here this Sunday morning on The Hill. Up next, we're going to hear from a Republican strategist. Fox Eyes on the Hill continues live right after this.